My family was done eating when I arrived at my parents' 30th anniversary. Mom gave me a $1,000 bill. Sister joked, "You're just our ATM." Everyone laughed. So I ripped the money and walked out. 3 months later, the bank phoned me. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can be the ones who hurt you the deepest. But what if I told you my own father, the man who raised me, actually tried to commit identity theft against me? That phone call, it didn't just change everything. It forced me to see my family for who they truly were, and it shook my entire world. My name is Cassandra, and I'm 34. For years, I'd been the family wild card. My older sister, Stephanie, she was the golden child. Lawyer, perfect husband, beautiful kids, living the dream our parents laid out. My father, Jack, a bank manager, always impeccably dressed. My mother, Eleanor, an accountant, meticulous about appearances. Me, I chose art school, became a freelance graphic designer. My income could be feast or famine, but I was building something for myself, creating a life in my small, charming apartment in Capitol Hill. Our family dynamic always revolved around achievement, around comparison. Dinner conversations were Stephanie's triumphs, her straight A's, her debate wins. My art achievements, they were just cute hobbies. "Art is wonderful, darling," my mother would say, patting my hand, "but you need something stable to fall back on." It stung. It always stung. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. I won $200,000 on a lottery ticket. Not enough to retire, but enough to wipe out my student loans, build a solid emergency fund, and invest in my business. I planned to keep it a secret, but during a family dinner, when my parents asked why I seemed less stressed, I made the mistake of mentioning it. The dynamic shifted instantly. I was no longer the family disappointment. I was a resource. It started small. My father needed a new car after his broke down. "A small loan," he said, $7,000. "I'll pay you back with my year-end bonus." The bonus came and went. No repayment. When I gently brought it up, he looked wounded. "We paid for your college, Cassandra. Family helps family." Then came Stephanie's request. My niece, Emma, wanted a prestigious summer camp. For $1,000 that Stephanie and her surgeon husband somehow couldn't spare from their vacation fund. It would mean so much to her, Stephanie cooed. And it's not like you have kids to spend on. My mother needed a kitchen renovation. My brother-in-law needed investors. With each request, the amount grew, the pretense of repayment vanishing. Any hesitation from me was met with guilt trips about family loyalty or reminders of how I got lucky while they worked hard. The most painful part wasn't the money. It was how clearly conditional their affection had become. Before the win, I got obligatory birthday calls. Afterward, suddenly, I was in weekly dinners, group texts, invited on vacations I was subtly expected to subsidize. Yet, I never felt truly welcomed. Comments like, "Well, it's not like you have a family to support," or "At least your money is going to good use through us," were common. When I landed a major contract, it was overshadowed by my nephew's soccer trophy. Despite all this, I still craved their approval. So, when my parents' 30th anniversary approached, I saw it as an opportunity. I spent weeks researching the perfect gift, matching Apple Watches engraved, set up with their favorite fitness apps. I wrapped them beautifully. I even practiced a short toast. I felt hopeful. I wanted to celebrate their love, to honor the family they had created, even with its flaws. That evening, traffic was a nightmare. A sudden downpour, a 3-car pileup on Aurora Avenue. I gripped the steering wheel, anxiety mounting, phone pressed to my ear. No answer from Mom, Dad, or Stephanie. My texts to the family chat went unread. By the time I finally burst through the restaurant door, breathless An hour late, my hair frizzy from the rain, my heart sank. The hostess gave me a sympathetic smile. The Williams party? They've already been served the main course. When I walked into the private dining room, it was like walking into a party I hadn't been invited to. Everyone was there, laughing, forks clinking against dessert plates. No one noticed me for several long seconds. It was my nephew, Charlie, who spotted me first. "Oh, Aunt Cassie is here," he said, barely looking up from his chocolate cake. Heads turned. My mother's laughter vanished, replaced by a cool acknowledgement. "Well, look who finally decided to join us. We thought you might not come at all." "No, glad you made it. No, were you okay?" Just that subtle accusation. It cut deeper than any outright criticism. "There was an accident on Aurora," I explained, still clutching the gift bag. "I tried calling everyone." My sister shrugged. We were enjoying ourselves. Phones away during family dinner. Remember Dad's rule? A rule, I knew, that only applied when convenient. My father waved a hand at the empty chair. "Sit down. We'll see if the kitchen can make you something quickly." I slid into the seat. Empty bread basket, empty water glasses. No one had saved me appetizers. No one had thought to order my usual truffle pasta, despite knowing I'd been ordering it since childhood. "No need to trouble the kitchen," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm just glad to be here." I pulled out my beautifully wrapped gift. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. 30 years is an amazing accomplishment." My mother took the box with a polite thank you, setting it aside without opening it. My aunt eventually suggested, "Shouldn't we open Cassandra's gift?" My mother feigned surprise. "Oh, of course." When she opened it, revealing the 2 Apple Watches, there was a moment of genuine appreciation. "These are very nice," my father commented. "They're the newest models," I explained eagerly. "Engraved with your wedding date, set up with your fitness app." "That's thoughtful," my mother said, but quickly closed the box. Neither of them tried them on. The moment passed. "Wait until you see what Stephanie and Daniel got them." My niece piped up, already a master of redirection. Stephanie smiled smugly, handing over an envelope. Inside, documents for a week-long, all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii, first-class airfare, a beachfront suite. The reaction was immediate, effusive. My mother teared up, hugging Stephanie. My father clapped Daniel on the shoulder. For the next 15 minutes, conversation revolved entirely around Hawaii. My gift sat forgotten. That's the difference between having a real career and just doing freelance work, Daniel said to my father, his voice carrying clearly, "When you make real money, you can do real gifts." No one contradicted him. My mother nodded, showing my aunt resort photos on her phone. I sat silently, picking at the chocolate mousse someone had belatedly offered. It tasted like ashes. As the Hawaii excitement finally waned, my mother reached for her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Before I forget," she said, her voice practical, putting me instantly on edge. She smoothed a restaurant bill flat against the white tablecloth. "We need to settle the dinner check." My father nodded. "Quite a celebration we've had." I glanced at the total. My eyes widened. $1,000. Even for Canlis, one of Seattle's most expensive restaurants. This seemed excessive for 8 people. We reserved the private room and ordered the premium wine pairing, my mother explained. And, of course, the full tasting menu for everyone. Then, she did something that left me momentarily speechless. She slid the bill across the table, directly to me. "We thought you might like to take care of this, Cassandra," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Since you missed most of the dinner, it would be a nice way for you to contribute to the celebration." I stared at the bill, then back at my mother, waiting for someone to laugh and say it was a joke. No one did. Just an expectant silence. You want me to pay for a dinner I barely attended? I finally managed, my voice smaller than I intended. Well, we did reserve a spot for you, my father pointed out. The restaurant charges by the person. Plus, it's not like you have other expenses, my mother added. No children to feed, no mortgage. Before I could respond, Stephanie let out a short, sharp laugh. Oh, come on, Cassie. Don't act so surprised. You've always been our family ATM since you won that money. Why stop now? The table erupted in laughter. Even my niece and nephew giggled. Daniel raised his wine glass in a mock toast to Cassandra's good fortune, which we all get to enjoy. More laughter, more clinking glasses. I sat frozen, the $1,000 bill before me blurred as I fought back tears. 3 years of similar moments flashed through my mind. The loans never repaid, the gifts I was expected to provide, the vacations I'd subsidized. Each request had been dressed up as a special circumstance, a one-time need, a family obligation. But Stephanie's casual comment had stripped away the pretense, revealing the brutal truth. I had been nothing but an ATM. I was not a daughter, not a sister. I was a convenient source of funds. Remember when she paid for Emma's entire summer camp? My mother reminisced, as if I weren't sitting right there. $8,000 for 6 weeks. And the new roof for the lake house last year, my father added. That was what, $15,000. $22,000, I corrected quietly. No one heard me. Oh, and Christmas. Stephanie continued, warming to the theme. When she got everyone those ridiculously expensive gifts, and all we had for her was that scarf from Nordstrom Rack. My aunt, at least, looked uncomfortable. Perhaps we should change the subject. But my mother waved her concern away. Oh, Cassandra knows we're just teasing. She's happy to help the family. Right, dear? All eyes turned to me, not with gratitude, not with affection, but with entitled anticipation. The golden goose, the family ATM. I looked down at the bill again. It wasn't just a dinner check. It was a symbol of our entire relationship. They had been dining out on my generosity, both literally and figuratively, for years. And for what? Not for love or respect or true inclusion, just for what I could provide. The realization hit me with physical force, a punch to the chest. I had been buying their affection, and they had been selling me a counterfeit version of family love. Is that what I am to all of you? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Just an ATM? An awkward pause. My father tried damage control. Now, Cassandra, no one thinks of you that way. We're family. We support each other. Support each other? I repeated. When was the last time any of you supported me? When I landed the Microsoft contract last year, did anyone even remember to congratulate me the next day? When I was sick with pneumonia last winter, did anyone bring me soup or check on me? Silence descended. My mother fidgeted with her napkin. My sister became intensely interested in her wine glass. I thought so, I said softly. It only goes one way, doesn't it? My brother-in-law cleared his throat. Look, if you're having money problems, just say so. No need to make a scene. That comment, with its complete misunderstanding of my point, was the final straw. I wasn't angry about the money itself. I was heartbroken about what it represented. A family that valued me only for what I could give them, not for who I was. The silence that followed Daniel's tone-deaf comment stretched for what felt like minutes. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Would I back down, as I always had? Would I write the check with a forced smile? In that moment, something shifted. A lifetime of seeking approval, of trying to earn love, of accepting scraps of affection in return for substantial financial support. It all crystallized into one thought. I deserved better than this. With deliberate calm, I picked up the $1,000 bill. My mother's expression relaxed slightly, assuming I was about to reach for my purse. Instead, I held the paper between both hands and slowly, methodically began to tear it into pieces. The sound of ripping paper cut through the silence like a knife, first in half, then quarters, then smaller and smaller, until confetti-sized pieces fluttered onto the pristine white tablecloth. "Cassandra, what do you think you're doing?" my mother gasped. I looked her directly in the eyes. "Have you lost your mind?" my father demanded, his face flushing with anger. "That bill needs to be paid." "Then pay it yourselves," I replied, my voice steady and clear. "I am done being the family bank." I stood up, smoothing down my dress with hands that were surprisingly steady despite my racing heart. For 3 years, I have given and given. Money for renovations, for vacations, for cars and camps and college funds. Did any of you ever say thank you? Did anyone ever offer to pay me back? Did anyone even acknowledge these were not obligations, but gifts from someone who hoped it might make you finally see her as worthy of your love? My sister rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, don't be so dramatic. We're family. Of course, we love you. Do you, Stephanie?" I countered. "When was the last time you called me just to talk, not to ask for something? When was the last time any of you showed interest in my life, my work, my achievements?" "We're busy people," my mother said defensively. "We have responsibilities, careers, children. And I don't." I shot back. "My time, my work, my life is less valuable because I chose a different path. I supported this family financially for years. I helped pay for Emma's braces when your insurance wouldn't cover it. I covered the deposit when Dad's car broke down. I bought you that diamond bracelet for your birthday last year, Mom. The one you're wearing right now. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to make you happy." My mother's hand instinctively went to the $14,000 tennis bracelet on her wrist. "If we are truly family, if we truly support each other," I continued, "then why am I the only one giving? Why is my worth to this family measured only by what I can provide financially?" My nephew looked confused. "But Aunt Cassie, you have all that lottery money. You're rich." "I was never rich, Charlie," I said gently. $200,000 is a lot, but it's not unlimited wealth. And most of what I had left went to all of you." My father's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "If you're having money problems, you should have said something. We could have been more considerate." That response told me everything. Not, "We value you regardless of money," but "we would have asked for less if we knew the well was running dry." "This isn't about whether I can afford it," I said, picking up my purse. "This is about respect, about being valued for who I am, not what I can give. And clearly, that's not happening here." My sister scoffed. "You're being ridiculously sensitive. It was just a joke about the ATM thing." "Was it, Stephanie?" I asked, because from where I'm standing, it feels like the most honest anyone has been with me in years. I pulled $300 cash from my wallet, more than my portion of the meal, had I actually eaten it. I placed it on the table. "This covers my share. The rest is on all of you. Consider it the first boundary of many I will be setting from now on." My mother's face crumpled. "Cassandra, please. It's our anniversary. Don't ruin this special night." For a moment, I felt the familiar pull of guilt, the ingrained need to please. But then I remembered how they had started dinner without me, how they had dismissed my gift, how they had laughed at my expense. "I think the night was ruined long before I got here." I said quietly, "Happy anniversary. I hope the next 30 years bring you wisdom to match your longevity." With that, I turned and walked toward the door. "Cassandra Williams, you get back here right now," my father called, his voice sharp with authority. "We are not finished discussing this." I paused at the doorway, looking back one last time at the family tableau. My parents' angry faces, my sister's contemptuous eye roll, Daniel's smirk, my niece and nephew's confusion, my aunt and uncle's uncomfortable silence. "Actually, Dad," I replied, "I think we are." And then I walked out. Each step felt simultaneously like the heaviest and lightest movement of my life. Heavy with the finality of what had just happened. Light with the sudden, unexpected liberation of speaking my truth. As I drove home through the rain-slicked streets, tears streamed down my face. But they weren't entirely tears of sadness. There was relief there, too. And something else I hadn't felt in a long time when thinking about my family. Pride. Pride in finally standing up for myself, in refusing to be defined by their limited perception of my worth. By the time I reached my apartment, I was emotionally drained, yet strangely energized. I kicked off my heels, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat by the window. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen by my family, even if what they saw was someone they couldn't manipulate anymore. I raised my glass in a solitary toast. To boundaries, I whispered to the empty room. And to whatever comes next. The 3 months that followed were both the most difficult and most transformative of my adult life. I maintained complete radio silence. The first few weeks were agony, filled with doubt and waves of guilt. Had I overreacted? Was tearing up the bill childish? My phone became a source of both anxiety and disappointment. Sometimes it would light up with texts from my parents or Stephanie, and my heart would race with hope for an apology. But each message followed the same pattern. No acknowledgement, no accountability. Just attempts to pull me back into the old dynamic. My mother. Your father and I are considering renovating the lake house kitchen. Since you have such good taste, we thought you might want to contribute to the new appliances. Call me back. Stephanie, Emma's birthday is next month. She wants that expensive drawing tablet, the one you mentioned once. I told her you'd probably get it for her. My father, the Hawaii trip is coming up. Your mother thought you might want to send us some spending money as an anniversary gift, since you ruined the dinner. Think about it. Each message confirmed I had made the right decision, yet they still stung. They showed just how deeply entrenched the pattern was. How my family saw me primarily as a resource, not a person with feelings and boundaries. Instead of sinking into isolation, I channeled my energy. I took on new design projects that challenged me creatively. I joined an art collective, meeting other professionals who valued my work. Most importantly, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Leanne Matthews, who specialized in family dynamics and boundary setting. "What you are experiencing is grief," Dr. Matthews explained. "Not just for the relationship you have lost, but for the relationship you never had and always wanted." Those words hit home profoundly. I was mourning the family I had always hoped we could be. Family relationships shouldn't be transactional, she continued. Genuine love doesn't come with a price tag. We worked on recognizing my own worth, understanding that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, but necessary. My mother's voicemails veered between guilt-tripping. "I can't believe you treat your own mother this way," and angry accusations. "You always were the selfish one." Stephanie's tactics were more direct. "You're being ridiculous, Cassie." So, we made a few jokes about money. Get over yourself and grow up. Not once did any of them say, "I'm sorry," or "I miss you." Their concern seemed entirely focused on the loss of what I could give them, not the loss of me. Around this time, I met Grace Chin at an art event, a photographer who had moved from Chicago. We bonded. When I cautiously shared my family struggles, expecting platitudes about blood being thicker than water, her response surprised me. My parents tried to control me through money for years, she said matter-of-factly. They paid for my college on the condition I studied business. When I changed my major, they cut me off completely. No warning, no discussion, just financial abandonment. What did you do? I asked, amazed by her calm. I got 3 jobs, took out loans, and finished my degree. She replied, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most important. It taught me that their money was never support, it was control. Grace became a crucial part of my support system. She understood the complicated intersection of family and finances. The question isn't whether you should forgive them. She told me, the question is, what would that forgiveness look like? Does it mean going back to the way things were, or creating something new with clear boundaries? Her perspective gave me clarity. I didn't have to choose between cutting them off forever or returning to being their financial safety net. There was a middle path. As the weeks passed, I grew stronger. The guilt receded, replaced by a quiet confidence. I started sleeping better. I rediscovered old passions. My life was becoming my own, shaped by my choices. There was loneliness sometimes, but it was a clean loneliness, uncomplicated by manipulation. By the 3rd month, the constant barrage of calls had slowed to a trickle. Maybe they'd accepted I was serious, or maybe they'd found other sources of financial support. Whatever the reason, I was grateful for the respite. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, as I sat at my desk, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Is this Cassandra Williams? The voice was professional, with a gravity that immediately put me on alert. This is Thomas Brennan, Senior Credit Manager at First Security Bank. I need to speak with you regarding some unusual activity on your accounts. My stomach dropped. Financial fraud was the last thing I needed. What kind of unusual activity? I asked, moving to the sofa. There was a brief pause. Miss Williams, our fraud detection system flagged an attempt to open a new credit account in your name. The application was submitted last Thursday with your Social Security number, date of birth, and other personal information, but certain discrepancies triggered our security protocols. I haven't applied for any new credit accounts. My anxiety soared. Was someone trying to steal my identity? That appears to be the case, he replied, his tone softening. However, this situation is somewhat delicate. Our investigation indicates that the application was submitted by someone you know. The primary applicant was listed as Jack Williams, with you as a co-authorized user. But the signature purporting to be yours failed our verification process. The room seemed to tilt sideways as his words sank in. Jack Williams. My father. That's my father. I confirmed, a whisper. Yes, Mr. Brennan said. I'm sorry to be the bearer of this news, Miss Williams, but it appears your father attempted to open a joint credit line with a $25,000 limit using your personal information without your authorization. When we called the contact number on the application, the individual identifying himself as Jack Williams became agitated and insisted the application was legitimate. I pressed my fingertips against my closed eyelids. My own father had attempted to commit identity theft against me. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. The application included copies of what appeared to be your driver's license and Social Security card. Mr. Brennan continued. May I ask if you have provided these documents to your father recently, or if he would have access to them? I thought back to the last time I had visited my parents' home. Months before the anniversary dinner, I had needed some insurance paperwork, leaving my document folder briefly unattended in the study while helping my mother in the kitchen. Had he taken that opportunity? The thought made me physically ill. No, I said firmly. I did not provide those documents or authorize him to use my information in any way. Mr. Brennan's voice became more formal. Miss Williams, what your father attempted constitutes identity theft. a criminal offense. As the potential victim, you have several options. We've flagged this as fraudulent and denied the application, but you may wish to file a police report, particularly to protect yourself from any further attempts. Has he done this before? I asked, a chilling thought forming. Was this just the first time he'd been caught? There was a telling pause. I cannot discuss specific details of other applications due to privacy regulations, Mr. Brennan said carefully. However, I can tell you that our system shows previous credit inquiries in your name from several different financial institutions over the past 2 months. The implications were clear. This wasn't a one-time desperate act. This was a pattern of behavior. My father had been systematically trying to use my identity to access credit, likely since I had cut off contact after the anniversary dinner. What do I need to do to protect myself? I asked, reaching for a notepad. Mr. Brennan was thorough and compassionate. Place a fraud alert. Consider a credit freeze. Monitor accounts. Change passwords. File a police report. He even offered to connect me with the bank's identity theft response team. As we neared the end, he hesitated. Miss Williams, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we see these situations more often than people realize when they involve family members. They can be particularly complicated emotionally. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need assistance. After thanking him and ending the call, I sat motionless on my sofa, the notepad of security steps clutched in my hand. The afternoon sun streamed through my windows, a golden light at odds with the darkness of what I'd just learned. My own father hadn't just tried to take advantage of my generosity. He had crossed the line into criminal behavior. Had he always seen me this way? As a resource to be exploited? Was there ever genuine love there? Or had it always been conditional? I thought about the consequences of filing a police report. Criminal charges for my father. It could tear what remained of my family apart. Yet, not filing a report left me vulnerable. It sent the message that his behavior was acceptable. The hardest part was acknowledging this wasn't a momentary lapse. The multiple credit inquiries hinted at a calculated, ongoing effort. This realization transformed my pain into something sharper, more defined. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about a fundamental breach of trust from someone who should have protected me. I picked up my phone again, not to call the police, but to call Dr. Matthews. I needed guidance before making such a significant decision. As the phone rang, I looked at the collection of family photos on my bookshelf. Holidays, graduations, vacations, moments I had treasured as evidence of family bonds that now seemed as fraudulent as my father's credit application. Whatever decision I made next would irrevocably change those relationships. There would be no going back. No sweeping this under the rug with an awkward apology. The thought was both terrifying and strangely freeing. My therapist answered, Dr. Matthews speaking. It's Cassandra, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Something has happened with my father, and I need to talk through my options. As I began to explain, I realized I was entering yet another phase of this painful journey. But for the first time, I was approaching it with clear eyes, free from the fog of guilt and obligation that had clouded my judgment for so long. After lengthy discussions with Dr. Matthews and careful consideration, I made a decision that honored both my need for self-protection and my complicated feelings. I would not file criminal charges against my father, but I would take every other possible measure to protect myself and establish unbreakable boundaries. I put a complete freeze on my credit at all 3 major bureaus, making it impossible for anyone to open new accounts in my name. I changed all my passwords, set up fraud alerts, and even started having my mail delivered to a private post office box. Then came the hardest part, confronting my family with what I knew. Rather than calling or meeting in person, which would have given them an opportunity to manipulate the narrative through tears or accusations, I wrote a detailed email. I sent it to my parents, my sister, and my aunt and uncle, laying out exactly what had happened. I have recently discovered that Dad attempted to commit identity theft by opening credit accounts in my name without my knowledge or consent. I wrote, "This is not only a profound betrayal of trust, but also a criminal act. While I have chosen not to press charges out of consideration for our family, I want everyone to understand that this crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. I am implementing complete financial protection measures and will have no further contact with anyone who minimizes, excuses, or enables this behavior." The responses came quickly, and they followed predictable patterns. My father sent no reply at all. My sister responded with defensive anger, accusing me of exaggerating and trying to destroy the family over a simple misunderstanding. My aunt expressed shock and sympathy, but still urged reconciliation for the sake of family harmony. My mother's response, however, was unexpected. 3 days after my email, she called. I nearly didn't answer, but something told me to take the call. "Cassandra?" Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, lacking its usual authoritative tone. "Can we meet? Just you and me, please?" Against my better judgment and Dr. Matthews' cautious advice, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near my apartment, a public place where I could leave easily. I arrived early, choosing a table with a clear path to the exit. When my mother walked in, I was struck by how much she had aged in just 3 months. Her immaculate appearance seemed slightly disheveled. She spotted me and made her way over, hesitating before sitting down. "Thank you for meeting me," she began, nervously folding and unfolding a napkin. "I know you have every reason to refuse." I waited silently, determined not to make this easy for her. "What your father did was wrong," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I want you to know that I had no idea he was doing this. I would never have condoned it. But you condoned treating me like a bank account for years." I replied evenly. "You participated in it, encouraged it, laughed about it at the anniversary dinner." She flinched at the reminder, but didn't deny it. "Yes," she admitted softly. "I did. We all did. And I am sorry, Cassandra. Truly sorry." The apology I had waited years to hear almost didn't register. I had become so accustomed to excuses that sincerity caught me off guard. "Your father has a problem," she continued. "He has been gambling for years." Something I tried to ignore because it was easier than confronting it. The nice lifestyle, the renovations, the vacations, all of it has been built on sand. We are deeply in debt, have been for years, and it's only gotten worse since you stopped helping. "Helping," I repeated. "Is that what you call it when you treat your daughter like an ATM?" She winced. "You're right to be angry. We took advantage of your generosity and love. When you won that money, we saw it as a solution to our problems rather than what it actually was, your opportunity for financial security." As my mother continued, a fuller picture emerged. My father's gambling had spiraled out of control. They had remortgaged the house twice. Credit cards were maxed out. The successful image they had maintained, the one I'd always felt pressured to live up to, was a complete facade. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Are you hoping I'll bail you out again?" She shook her head firmly. "No, Cassandra. I'm telling you because you deserve the truth and because I want to apologize for how we have treated you, not just recently, but for years. We measured your worth by the wrong metrics. We failed to see and appreciate the amazing woman you have become." Tears formed in her eyes, but unlike the performative emotion I'd seen in the past, these seemed genuine. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I am getting help. I've joined a support group for families affected by gambling addiction, and I'm learning a lot about codependency and enabling. I'm trying to convince your father to get help too, but he's not ready yet. And Stephanie, I asked, does she know about all this? I tried to talk to her, my mother's side. She doesn't want to hear it. She's built her life around the same illusions we created. Acknowledging the truth would mean facing some uncomfortable realities about herself and her choices. We talked for nearly 2 hours, not just about the recent events, but about patterns established throughout my childhood, the constant comparisons, the conditional approval, the emphasis on appearance over substance. For the first time, my mother listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, it was without defensive justifications. Before we parted, I made my position clear. I am willing to have a relationship with you, Mom, but it will be different. I will not provide financial support of any kind. That boundary is non-negotiable, and I need time and space to see if the changes you're describing are real and lasting. She nodded, accepting these terms without argument. I understand. And your father, I continued. I cannot have any contact with him right now. What he did was not just hurtful, it was criminal. He violated my trust in a fundamental way. Maybe someday, if he gets help and makes amends, that might change. But not now. The months that followed were a gradual process of rebuilding on new foundations. I maintained my boundaries firmly, but allowed my mother limited contact through weekly phone calls. I helped her find resources for financial counseling and support groups, but made it clear I would not be contributing to their financial recovery. That was a journey they needed to make on their own. My sister eventually reached out, though her version of an apology left much to be desired. I still think you overreacted, she said, but maybe we were a bit thoughtless about the money stuff. It was a start, if a small one. A year after that fateful anniversary dinner, I found myself in a different place. I'd moved to a new apartment, expanded my design business to include more fulfilling creative projects, and built a circle of friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. My relationship with my family remained complicated. My father eventually entered treatment for his gambling addiction. And while I maintained my distance, I didn't stand in the way of his recovery. My mother and I established a more honest relationship, though the closeness we had once shared remained elusive. Stephanie and I settled into a cordial but distant dynamic. The most profound change, however, was within myself. I had learned to value my own worth independent of others' validation. I had discovered that setting boundaries was not an act of cruelty, but an act of self-respect. I had found that family could be defined by choice and quality of connection, rather than merely by blood. On the anniversary of that fateful dinner, I took myself out to a nice restaurant, sat at a table for one, and ordered exactly what I wanted. As I raised a glass of champagne in a solitary toast, I reflected on the painful but necessary journey of the past year. True love, I had learned, never comes with a price tag. It cannot be bought or sold. It exists in the respect we show for each other's autonomy, in the support we offer without expectation of return, in the joy we take in each other's authentic self-expression. Money may buy influence, compliance, or the appearance of affection, but it cannot purchase genuine love or respect. I had also discovered that sometimes the healthiest love we can offer, both to ourselves and others, is the courage to say no to harmful patterns. Setting boundaries is not about punishment, but about creating space for healthier relationships to potentially grow. And perhaps most importantly, I had learned that my value was inherent, not earned through achievement or financial provision or conformity to others' expectations. I was enough, just as I was. As I finished my meal, I thought about how I would end this chapter of my story, not with bitterness over what had been lost, but with gratitude for what had been gained. self-knowledge, authentic connections, and the freedom to write the next chapters on my own terms. If you have ever struggled with family expectations or felt valued only for what you could provide rather than who you are, I hope my story helps you recognize that you deserve more. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary for healthy relationships. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, even when it hurt? What did you do? I'd really love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories of personal growth through challenging circumstances, and share with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by what they give, but by who they are. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself first.